the Woodpreneur Podcast, where sawmill owners and lumber entrepreneurs grow their businesses. Every week, real stories from the timber industry, whether you're starting small or running a big operation. Subscribe for real stories and insights from the industry.
And welcome back to a brand new episode of the Woodpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Alger. And some of you may have noticed that I posted on several different social media platforms last week about one of our speakers who was at our Forest Products Week conference a couple weeks ago. And I mentioned that we would be interviewing further some of the speakers who were at that conference, as well as some of the guests, and really just kind of unpacking a lot more of what happened there and kind of how we can keep the momentum going and really create a strong localized wood group community. We're based in California, of course, but the concepts could translate anywhere that you are. So with that said, I wanted to introduce our guest today, Paul Shandel. Hi, welcome, Paul.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, of course. So, Paul, you were at the conference, but before we get into the conference too much, we want to hear a little bit more about you. What is your business? What do you do? And how did you get there?
Well, we probably don't have that much time on this podcast, but I'll hit the highlights.
All right.
So I'm a fourth generation logger here on the Mendocino coast. It's in my blood, can't get it out. I've been around sawmills my entire life from the time I was little bitty, stacking lumber with my mom when she used to run the mobile dimension sawmill that we first had, to working with my grandfather who hand built a sawmill here on the property that I live on from the ground up, a big circular sawmill,
How cool.
to running, wood miser sawmills, planers, molders, you name it. I've been in the wood industry my entire life. And then, growing up, I always worked with my father, who was a logger and road builder, did construction, dirt construction, heavy equipment's in my blood. So as I grew up, as soon as I graduated high school, basically lied on my application, 17 years old, went to work in the woods. They wouldn't have hired me if they knew that I wasn't 18, but I was barely 17 when I went to work. And as soon as I put those gloves on, it was game on. Let me show you what I can do. So went to worked for a guy. He mentored me for many, many years of, teaching me about the industry and how it worked, and, loved that. But, transitioned, always, making firewood was just something that we did growing up. We burned firewood and everything else. So that kind of transitioned into my first business, which was my first business that was mine, was a firewood business, and transitioned into that. And then, now I'm into utilizing the logs that come into the yard. If they're firewood logs when they come into the yard, that doesn't mean that they leave as firewood logs. I go through, sort them, and then we try to extract any material that is higher quality than firewood out of it. And that transitioned me into sawing lumber and planing lumber, and where I am today. I make a wide variety of products. So that's basically my story in a nutshell.
There you go. Okay. So I know you do cabins. Are these in addition to the firewood? So you still have the firewood business.
do. Yeah.
You're still separating your logs for,
Yeah.
they might come in for firewood, but you're going, ooh, I like that one. That's going to be a higher grade lumber. So you're separating your logs. And the cabins, are these cabins that people live in? Are they outbuildings? All of the above?
Oh no, every one that we've built has been custom ordered.
Okay.
We do it from foundation to roof, and we use all real wood, no plywood, not a stitch of plywood in the entire buildings.
Okay.
We start from basically skids, and then we do it all. Like we cut the trees usually, we saw the lumber, dry the lumber, plane the lumber, and then utilize the lumber. So it's totally ground up construction, vertically integrated. We do it all here on site. It's, it was a way for me to be able to upvalue a lot of the materials that we have. We have a lot of redwood here, which was great building material for the wall construction. the 2.5-inch thick walls, basically TNG 3x6s that we run through. At first, I had a Logosol planer that a Logosol 260, but support for that, as you well know, went away. Woodmiser took over the brand,
Yeah, I was
and
sorry.
yeah, and I tried to use that thing, and it was a little bit too small for what I wanted to do, and there was a bunch of deficiencies in that machine that I just couldn't overcome. I mean, we tried, we switched it over, put higher horsepower motors and stuff in it, but there was a lot of setup issues with the 260 model. And I was convinced by your salesman to step up to the 360, which was probably one of the best moves that I made in my business. That thing, hands down, it makes me money. Like, out of all of the equipment that I have, and I have a lot of equipment, that's the one thing that really honestly gets me jobs and makes me money is my planer molder.
It's a value add. It's that value add. So many people out there have sawmills, but can you dry it? Can you plane it?
Yeah.
Can you make the TNG?
Yeah.
That's a great way to set yourself apart. So when you said cabins, I was picturing log cabins, but you're saying they're TNG. Do they have any? Describe your cabins to me.
So I mean, we'll start at the ground and go to the top, I guess is the easiest way to describe them. So they're a custom cabin. I modeled them after kind of the logging cabins that were built in the late 1800s that they used to move from camp to camp. They used to make them with square beams, basically railroad ties, and then they would dovetail the corners together. I wanted to make something that was more economical to produce and easier to reproduce. So I just basically made a tongue and groove 3x6 that stack up. And then we did the corners kind of like a log cabin to where, it's button pass as you go up. They're all glued together, screwed together. They're super, super strong. We've moved them all over the county, and we actually have one in Corning, California that we delivered here a few months back. So they're used all over. They're primarily, the ones that I've sold are to people that are single and they just want a cute little cabin. They're beautiful. I mean, it's a craftsman thing. It's not for everybody.
Okay. So would you say it's like a tiny house or?
It is, but we don't put them on wheels. We put them actually on a foundation, whether it's pier and post or whether it's a concrete slab foundation or whatever. Yeah, I didn't kind of want to go down that tiny home thing as far as on the wheels. I thought that it was kind of trying to break a rule that's probably going to be changed here into the future as far as what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting because, obviously the tiny home rules are different than house building an actual house, Title 24 versus Title 25. So, tiny homes are considered a modular, or an RV, recreational vehicle. Anyway, I built them for homeowners, and then we built one for California State Parks. It's down in Bodega Bay and Wrights Beach. It's the kiosk that you go into the beach.
Right.
State Parks had me build them one for down there as an emergency. They had a building that was falling down, and I knew somebody at State Parks, and they reached out to me, and we were able to do that and deliver that down there. So we have one down there as well.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Huh. So these are you staying within a certain size for engineering or permitting, or do you just do whatever size anybody asks and then they work through the permitting process here in California? How does that work?
What I did was they're 12 by 24, almost all except for one. Well, actually, all except for two have been 12 by 24. That's as big as we can transport on the road without California Highway Patrol escort. Any wider than 12 feet here on the coast is extremely difficult to move. So we stayed with the 12 and 24. We built a custom trailer to be able to haul them, to keep them super low to the ground and be able to, a modular trailer system. Won't go into that, but we made that and we've transported them around. As far as permitting goes, to my knowledge, none of them have been permitted. I went to the building department. I've talked to numerous building inspectors. They've looked at all of the plans and all of that. There was no really gleaming things that were like any code violations or anything like that. Like I said, they're extremely well constructed. There's no corners cut whatsoever.
So there's no reason they couldn't be. The owners just haven't taken.
Right. So, well, the only issue that we really have is meeting Title 24 heating and insulation code, because solid wood doesn't have the insulation value that your high-end insulations have. Your either fiberglass or foam insulation have. And I mean, we have made provisions to where they could be insulated, but it kind of ruins the aesthetic of what it is. And when I first started doing Mendo Cabins, my 100% intention was to build a shell and then let people take it wherever they want to,
There you go.
or to build a kit that people could put together. And I kind of think that we're going to go back to that, to where people can buy the kit, assemble it themselves, or hire a contractor to assemble them on site. And then that gives a lot more latitude of size, because what I found going through the process is that smaller sizes cost more per square foot. You still have four walls, a roof, and a floor.
Right.
So double the size, it only quarters the cost more. So when you tell somebody that a 12 by 24 costs this much money, they're pretty taken back by it. And I'm like, well, it's the hours that go into the construction. So if people want to save money, then I think that that's going to be the way into the future. Is, we have the insulation. We can insulate cabins, and that's not an issue. But we lose the beauty of the inside of the cabin since they're all wood cabins. And since it's only 400 or under 400 square feet, the insulation is really not as big of an issue as people make it out to be. It is. If you were in, say, Colorado and it's negative 25 degrees or something like that. But here where we live, everybody who's put anything bigger than, a small little propane heater inside the building has literally been cooked out. The building that was installed in Corning has a mini split put in it, and it takes nothing to, like, they bought a big mini split and they're actually considering putting a smaller one in just because it's too much.
Oh, wow.
So it heats it more than they need, and it cools it more than they need. So it doesn't take much to heat and cool a really small space if you don't have any drafts.
Yeah.
Use good double pane windows. We have a fire membrane underneath the steel roofing. And we do everything we possibly can to meet the codes. So it's not like there's huge code violations or anything like that. It's just,
Okay.
we here in Mendocino County, it's relatively easy to permit. We have a alternative building code here from the hippies in the 60s. It's called Class K building code.
Okay.
So it allows people to be able to build with their own sod materials and have alternative foundations. And you have a lot of latitude with the building department here. But as a business plan, you want to be able to ship it anywhere. You want to be able
Yeah.
to sell anywhere. And
Now, do you put kitchens in them at all, or?
we do.
Okay.
So all the ones that we have built, even though I didn't want to build turnkey, they've all been turnkey. Plumbed, electrical,
Okay.
kitchen, bathroom. They're a turnkey, ready to go. Basically plug it into electricity, hook up the propane, hook up your water and your sewer, and you're good.
Wow. Okay. Well, that sounds great. That sounds great. So what size, maybe, I know some of the log home builders, the size logs that they use equate to our whatever the insulation factor that it needs to be.
Absolutely.
So is it because you're using the 3x6 that yours isn't qualifying for that, or?
But technically, it's basically 1 R value per inch of wood. So we have like 2.5 R is the R value of our buildings.
Got it.
But most building inspectors will tell you that most of your heat goes out through the roof or in through the floor. The thermal siphoning causes the cold air to come up from the bottom and the hot air to go out the roof. So as long as you get the roof right, as long as you get the ceiling and the floor insulated, you're good. So the floor is super easy to insulate. That's no problem. And the roof, we know how to do that. If somebody wants it, it's no problem. Like
Okay.
we can insulate the roof as well. It's just the walls that we kind of struggle with of how to insulate them and then not lose the bits. They're beautiful.
Aesthetic.
It's natural wood, right?
Yeah.
It's beautiful redwood, and we tried to put a little sapwood on the inside so that you get a little contrast of color and stuff like that.
Right. So is it all redwood that you're using? Have you ever made anything out of or made those out of any other species like the, beetle killed pine that's all over our state?
So I haven't, and the reason for that is when people come to the Mendocino coast, they expect to see redwood.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not that I can't. It's just this is the one thing that sets my business apart from
Mhm.
every other log home builder in the country. There's not another one that I've seen that is building their walls out of redwood. Everybody's using cedar or pine or fir. They just don't have the availability. We're blessed. We have literally one of the best building materials as far as rot and weather and years lifespan. I mean, these buildings will last 100 years.
Okay.
No question. No question.
Redwood covers it all.
It covers it all. So I felt like, we want to stand out in our market as being able to produce this premium product,
Great.
and since it's what we have that's unique to us, I think that is very important for me to emphasize that and capitalize on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Good point. Yeah. So tell me, Paul, what is the most exciting thing that you've done in your business? The most exciting project?
So, believe it or not, one of the most satisfying and exciting projects, there's actually two. The first cabin I built was super exciting. It was fun. I built it. Basically, we would work cutting firewood till lunchtime, and then after lunchtime, I'd go build this cabin for, 3 or 4 months. I worked on it, building it all myself from start to finish. That was very, very exciting. But recently we built our first tank sauna. Thanks to the MP360, we were able to cut basically the tank stock, with the cove and the cup profile. And we were able to build ourselves, me and my wife built a tank sauna, a 6-foot tank sauna from start to finish, including we built a heater that goes in it as well. I mean, I built that in my shop, and we actually have orders for saunas now. So it's a little bit different of a direction, but it's a lot simpler of a business. There's no permitting involved. It's kind of a spontaneous purchase, people love it. It's healthy, and we enjoy the heck out of it. So
I bet. And they're so popular right now. So
exactly.
yeah, and I don't see it going anywhere because the trajectory into health and peace and comfort and all that stuff. So yeah. How cool. How cool.
Yeah, we love it. We use it, 3 times a week at least. So, yeah, and I think that going into the future, it's a really, really good business model for me because me and my wife can do it, and we can package them up and we can ship them anywhere. I think that the heat treating and that is going to be extremely important for this business opportunity that's presented itself. So, I mean, we talked briefly about, dry kilns and whatever.
Yeah.
That will be the next step in my business, will be a dry kiln to be able to heat treat and dry my lumber so that we can do it faster,
Yeah.
And you can air dry redwood. It works perfectly fine, but that does not address the heat treating and being able to ship, all over. And I want to be able to ship all over. I don't want to just have to have a local market.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. All right. So that was the most exciting project, and how rewarding is that? Tell me about your biggest obstacle. I know last week I got real vulnerable that it's not all sunshine and roses when you own your own business.
Right.
Tell me what's your obstacle story, or the thing that you just thought, "Oh my goodness, what am I going to do?"
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I've been on a kind of a self-help gig here for quite a while. I've listened to the podcasts and listening to your podcast and your husband's podcast and a lot of different podcasts, business related or whatever. And looking from the outside or thinking back on it, I didn't realize how many holes I had in my game. and things that were consuming massive amounts of my time that can be remedied. And one of those for me, and thinking about it, one of my biggest hurdles is I'm a sloppy person. I mean, I'll just admit it right now. I'm sloppy and I tend to be a little bit unorganized.
Oh,
And even when
I can relate.
right. Even when I try to organize, I tend to revert back. So, seventh time you've heard something is the first time you've heard it. So I just have to keep reminding myself. And then the other side of it is, clean up your side of the fence. So it's hard for me to ask my employees to be clean and tidy when I'm not being clean and tidy. So I'm already started on working on organizing my yard and getting stuff dialed in to where we can find the inventory. I mean, I have so much inventory. I mean, we go through between 50 and 100 log truckloads of logs a year for between firewood and lumber. And so you can imagine the mountain of logs that I have, that lumber as well. And sometimes
And
it
slash.
just gets lost. It just gets lost. And it's like, I mean, yesterday I had a client come by to buy really high-end redwood. And I mean, we were digging through piles, finding treasures. And it's like, I can't continue in business doing that. I have to be able to inventory it and be able to find it when I need it. And then potentially, that's why I was really so happy after coming to your showroom and your class, was that you guys are addressing that inventory management problem. And it's like, everybody's like, oh yeah, I got a stack of lumber. And I'm like, no, you don't. You come look at mine. I got a stack of lumber. Whether or not I can find what I want is a huge issue. And then it's like the marketing thing is another one of my major hurdles. You guys have been very, very helpful with that as far as how to market, and I'm learning. It's not something.
Master.
It's interesting because when I was in the, I mean, like I said, I've been a logger and doing firewood my entire life. Loggers, you go, you look at the trees, you put in a bid, you get the job or not. All the foresters know the loggers' names. Firewood's the same thing. People get cold, they look in the phone book or now on Google, and if you have a website and you have good reviews, you get the phone call. Lumber is not like that. Lumber, especially, high-end lumber, people want to look at the boards, they want to be able to put hands on them. It's different, and marketing is key, and getting it to a wide audience is key. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't have 30 years to learn marketing. So to have people who already have marketing experience to be marketing lumber on Ancestry, that's what we're talking about here, is Ancestry. That is monumental, because there's 100 people just like me who have stacks of lumber just in my location, just in my area,
Yeah.
that don't have an outlet for this lumber. It's incredible lumber, but there really is no marketplace that has been set up to where, look at, you can tag it, you can take pictures of it, and then you can market it. So for me, that was a
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And that, as we told the story, that was born out of my own disorganization and 10 acres. I'm not kidding. You're saying all those truckloads going in. I'm like, I don't need to imagine it. I've lived it,
right.
and it's chaos, and it's not perfect yet, but man, it's on a trajectory of organization. And as I mentioned at the conference that we've been talking about, am a recovering disorganized person. I've also been on that growth mode, and I won't live in that disorganized place anymore. I'm not beating myself up when I step backwards, but I'm moving in a forward direction, and it's refreshing to hear that other people are.
It's a definite handicap. It's a definite handicap. And it's like, even like when I walk out and I look at the units of lumber that I really spent the time to properly stack, where all the ends are even, and I'm like, that's how it needs to be. And just aesthetically, when you drive by it, you look at it and you're like, okay, somebody cared about that when they put it in the stack. So
Yeah.
I really have to make strides to become more organized and spend the time, because it's worth it. And my wife is very organized, so she can help me with that, because she
We're the
has that
opposite.
size. We are. She's very organized and very tidy. So it's like between the two of us, I could just have to put the effort in and learn that habit, like
Right.
just doing it, right?
So you're fortunate. It's Carrie, right?
Yes.
You're fortunate to have Carrie, and I'm fortunate to have
Yeah.
Brian because
Right.
they
Right.
help us come out of where we are. It's a good compliment.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Paul, at the conference, you mentioned one of your takeaways was an inventory solution. Was there anything else from the conference that really stood out to you that were key takeaways? Anything you would have liked to have seen? And maybe we do next year. We've been asked many times to make this an annual Forest Products Week conference. Yeah, anything you're going to implement as a result of it?
Well, obviously, I'm going to work hard to get your inventory management solution in my yard, and I'm going to actively do that. That is an absolute for sure. And the other thing that, if I want to grow my business much more than what it is right now, I really have to hire more people.
Mhm.
And I really like, there again, another hole in the game is the hiring process. Just because somebody comes by and they want a job
Yeah.
does not mean that you should give them that job without really closely or
Mhm.
diving into who that person is. Because we've all been there, we've all had people on the crew that's toxic or that just isn't the right fit for the job. So that's a skill that I've never developed, that hiring skill of being able to, discern between somebody who is right for the job and not right for the job. I'm like, oh yeah, you're big enough, you're strong enough, you can do it. And that's
You have this.
that's probably not the probably not the proper way. So
Right.
there again, it's like there's a lot of facets to business, and until it's like presented in front of you of like, hey, look at, we all need to build a team, even if it's you and your husband or your wife or whatever, even if it's you and your spouse, it's still a team. So there's still team building in there, and there's still management, and there's still, the work interface and stuff like that. And a lot of times we don't really think about it that way, but it truly is. And
Yeah.
that was really one of my, I mean, for me, that was really the highlight of your conference, was listening to your husband talk about, how to deal with those situations. And I really, really enjoyed that part of the conference.
Yeah. I had him sit in for once he taught me those principles, I had him sit in probably for 2 years of interview while I was learning the process. He sat in with me so that I can like just learn from him. And the hires were different. And not that we hired too many people in 2 years, but so he sat in maybe 4 to 6 interviews with me. And now I'm like, I've got this. I get it now. And oh my
Right.
gosh, it just works. So
Well, yeah, and it, it's funny. In business, I've always thought, I'm reinventing business, and then it's like I read a book, and they're like, oh, they already had this figured out 100 years ago.
but I'm
Like,
thankful they did.
well, absolutely. And it's interesting because I know that, in the palm of our hand, we usually have more information than we could ever understand or whatever. And very few people take the time to actually use it as a tool to be like, hey, look at, here it is. All the information is there. It's available. I'm really loving the podcast thing because I can continue to be working while I'm learning. A lot of the stuff that I do, running the firewood processor or whatever, or even running the front end loader, unloading log trucks and stuff like that, it's pretty robotic to me. I've done it for years and years and years. I can just do it.
Yeah.
So I can actually, exactly, I can just listen to a podcast or whatever, entertained, and I'm learning. And a lot of times I'll have to stop and I'll have to rewind and listen to it again to get the gist of it, if my mind wanders. But it's really been a great tool to be able to learn and see holes in our games and hopefully make our businesses better. The wood industry is a pretty tight margin business.
Mm-hmm.
Firewood is probably the tightest of any business that I've ever been in, as far as cost of operations and everything. Everybody's like, oh, man, you make so much money making firewood. And I just laugh because I'm like, yeah.
We turn a lot of money, don't we?
Exactly. I'm like, when I burn, $500 worth of fuel a day, every single day that I operate, I burn $500 just in fuel. That's not including labor. That's not including registrations and insurances and maintenance and everything on all the equipment. So I'm like, yeah, the numbers may look good as far as overall revenue, but at the end of the day, you really don't make much money. And it's kind of the same thing with sawing lumber. And that's why I went into I'm focusing more on the planing side of the lumber industry, because like you said, you know how many Woodmiser sawmills are in California. I mean, you know exactly, because you guys sell all the blades for them. So just in my location, I can think of 5 Woodmiser sawmills within, a 10-mile radius of me.
Yeah.
Not a single one of them has a planer. So, or a planer that can make, S4S, P&G, or
The middle planer. Yeah.
exactly. So I saw that as an opportunity of like, look at, there's a lot of people sawing lumber, but there's not a lot of people making lumber that is high enough quality to where contractors want to use it. And so that is a hurdle, right? If you're sawing lumber and you're making huge stacks of lumber and contractors refuse to use it because it's not nominal or it's not to grade, or, there's a million different reasons that they'll find to go to Home Depot and buy their lumber.
It's not
But
convenient.
it's not convenient. Exactly. Since the conference, I've actually been talking to contractors and stuff like that, as far as, hey, look at what's the biggest hurdle. And they're like, consistency is number one. And price is not even really in the equation, which I was like, they're going to be looking for the cheaper. That's not it.
No.
They're looking for quality, and they're looking for availability. Like, they want to be able to go get the unit.
Yeah.
They want it for the unit. Yeah, that's right. So anyway, that's why I'm kind of leaning more and more towards planing, and I have a lot of clients that have Woodmiser sawmills and Lucas mills that bring me their material to turn them into a finished product. So literally, I got a stack of lumber in front of my planer right now that I didn't saw, somebody else saw, and they're like, we want to turn it into TNG Doug fir flooring. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. Like,
yeah,
we're going to go with that. So
yeah, it's good that you're collaborating and cooperating with other sawyers in your area. And speaking of that, we brought up at the conference, California Wood Supply Group. Did you have any initial thoughts on that? What are your, what were your?
I think it's gonna work very well if you can get enough people to sign into it.
Mhm.
I think that's a really good pathway. Like I said, it's got to develop a little bit further, I think.
It does.
I definitely think that people are more conscious of where their wood is coming from now, which hasn't happened in the past.
Yeah.
People do want to know the story. And it's one of the things that I think Instagram has taught us, is that there's a story behind everything. And the story is far more interesting than the product. So I really think that you're onto something there, because I think that people, even something as silly as, the studs in their wall or whatever, if they know where it came from and they know that it was sourced properly and they know that it's to grade, I think that they'll pay for that. And I can't saw lumber as cheap as Home Depot, so I don't even try.
Nope.
And, for a long time, I was like, I'd always look at Home Depot and be like, okay, this is what the price is. This is what I'm going to charge. And I laughed the other day because I'm building a package for a timber frame that's going in right down the street from me. And I looked for 24-foot full dimension 8x8 Doug firs, and I looked all across the country. There ain't none.
Yeah.
Like, so how do you price that? It's like, the individual that's buying them, he wanted to know where it came from. He wanted to know where the logs came from. He wanted to know, how long they've been in my yard. He wanted to know the story. He wanted to take pictures while I was milling it, because it's a project that he's very passionate about. So
Yeah.
him having that, being like, oh yeah, it was sawed here locally right down the street, and the logs came from right over here. And we did this ourselves. So I think that whole story is playing more into what I'm trying to accomplish now.
Yeah.
To where people want to know. They want to know where it came from.
And that's the beauty of Ancestry, is that'll help with that as well. So
Yeah.
you mentioned Instagram has helped really tell that story. So Instagram, what's your Instagram handle? How would people reach out to you?
So it's Mendo Cabins is my Instagram. My website is Instagram.com as well. Or is MendoCabins.com as well. Paul Shandel Firewood is another website as well.
Yeah.
And I thank you for your podcast too. That has helped me immensely with my Instagram account.
Oh.
Just doing what you guys said to do has made it, and I'm like, wow, this is so easy. But nobody tells you that, right?
Nobody tells you what questions to ask. You mentioned
Exactly.
you mentioned that we all have all of this knowledge in the palm of our hand in our cell phones, and it's this immense knowledge, but it's so much. Like, what are the questions we need to ask for our business? And that's what I know Steve has been able to help with, and that's what Brian has been able to help with, and all these different people who are just kind of helping hone it down and go, okay, this is what you need to focus on. There's no limit to good ideas. What are the ideas that I need to implement? So
That's
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's great. And it's been interesting for me as far as that Instagram journey, because it kind of makes me take a look at the big picture as far as what I think is cool and what average, I shouldn't say average, what everybody else thinks is cool. Because like I said, from the time I was 4 years old, I was on equipment that most people can't even fathom. Just that's what we did. Like it's like a farmer on a farm tractor, we look at them, we're like, okay, this is a 2-story building moving across a crop. They look at it as like, oh, it's just like what we do.
Right.
So for me, I have to like think about it a little bit and be like, okay, what is the public going to think is cool? I mean, I look at a board and I nerd out on it. I find myself looking at all the grain patterns and everything else in it. And I'm like, okay, are people going to be really interested in that, or are they going to be interested in this sawmill with the 6-foot throat that's cutting the slab? And you know what I mean? So it's interesting for me. It's been kind of a thing of where I'm like, okay, I'm starting to learn of what the public thinks is really cool. And then I start
They don't
looking
get
at,
to
oh,
see that every day. Like
wow,
you,
everything I do is cool. I'm like,
yeah, you're dying breed, and not, there's just not that many people that know how to operate heavy equipment or chainsaws or the processors or get to work with wood, and it's interesting to people, and the fact that you're able to share that, how cool. So
yeah, like I just took a quick snapshot of my 82-year-old dad unloading a D8 bulldozer off the back of a low bed. I didn't really think nothing about it. We've all done it 100 times. It's like no big deal. I just took a quick clip of it,
yeah,
posted it on Instagram, and I got over 100,000 views in 24 hours.
yeah.
And I was like, okay, like, wow, all right. I mean, it was
Everyday life
cool,
is exciting.
but I didn't think it was anything that out of the ordinary. But
Yeah.
to most people, they'd never seen anything like that in their lives. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
cool.
okay, like, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Paul, thank you so much for being on. Did you have any parting thoughts? Any final thing you'd like to share?
Keep up with the podcast. The one thing that hopefully next year when you do your open house in your class again, which I know you will, I would like to see a little bit more of a sawmilling technique. I think it's one area of wood miser sawmills that's lacking is the kind of people. I mean, there's plenty of people sawing lumber online,
Mhm.
but not going through the steps of breaking the logs down as far as how to, get your different grades and stuff like that. And I think it would benefit your company a lot to have a little bit more. I was very frustrated when I first bought my new planer molder of the lack of information that was online about setup. Now there's a couple people that are on YouTube that really have some good setup,
I do.
but I'm a pretty handy guy, and it took me a year to figure out how to make my planer do what I want it to do,
Okay.
like consistently.
Yeah.
And I'm good at setting it up now. I can just blow right through it. But it was yeah. So anyway, but
Yeah.
yeah, that
Good information. Yeah. I'll definitely share that. Yeah, hands-on sawing technique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good one. So like straight sawing versus quarter sawing versus just slab
Exactly.
cleaning. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, it takes a lifetime to master. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've worked with a lot of really, really good sawyers with a lot of experience that have showed me a lot of things. And there's nobody with more experience than you guys. I mean, you guys have been doing it longer than anybody. So I think that that's one of the markets that there could be a whole school set up just for learning how to run your sawmill.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. Anyway, wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of
And
course.
yeah,
Yeah.
super enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening again to another episode of the Woodpreneur Podcast. And next week, we will be back unpacking a little bit more about the conference and learning more about speakers and guests who were there. We'll see you soon.